The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. A man named John was sent from God. He came for testimony, to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but came to testify to the light. And this is a testimony of John. Levites to him to ask him, "Who are you?" He admitted and did not deny it, but admitted, "I am not the Christ." So they asked him, "What are you then? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" He answered, "No." So they said to him, "Who are you, so we can give an answer to those who sent us? What do you have to say for yourself?" He said, "I am the voice of one crying in the desert, make straight the way of the Lord, as Isaiah the prophet said." Some Pharisees were also sent, so they asked him, "Why then do you baptize, if you are not the Christ, or Elijah, or the prophet?" John answered them, "I baptize with water, but there's one among you whom you do not recognize, the one who is to me, whose sandal strap I am not worthy to untie." This happened in Bethany, across the Jordan from where John was baptizing. The gospel of... May the words of the gospel wipe away your sin and lead us to everlasting life. Amen. My grace is in my God. Today is Gaudete Sunday, also known as the third Sunday of Advent. Gaudete means rejoice in Latin. And one of the ways you can tell is that I'm wearing rose or pink, much like the fourth Sunday of Lent, where we also wear rose. It's a time to rejoice. We're almost near the end of our journey. We have almost made it to Christmas. If me wearing pink doesn't smile or chuckle even, you may be overwhelmed by Advent already. The church uses color throughout the year to differentiate the seasons of the church year. Advent season is purple, with today as the exception. Then Christmas, or the Nativity of the Lord, as the church likes to call it, is white. Then we use green for ordinary time throughout the year. Lent is purple, except for the fourth Sunday of Lent, which is also rose. White again for Easter, for Pentecost, and the feast days of martyrs. So there is a method and meaning to all of it. But for a 4-week season, Advent has a lot packed into it. Advent brings us to the birth of Christ as Christmas, at Christmas, starting with us preparing our souls for the second coming of Christ at the beginning of Advent, to preparing our hearts to welcome the baby Jesus at Christmas. But we like to jump right into the birth of Jesus and get to the good stuff without doing our prep work. Having said that, I was listening to Christmas music as I was working on this homily. I mean, it's natural. Who would want to eat dessert first? But life is as much a journey as it is the destination. The journey is to prepare us for the destination. John the Baptist tells us, "Make straight the way of the Lord." Now, I assure you, God does not need us to prepare a way for him to traverse. What God needs us to do is make a path for God to be welcomed into our hearts. God is always there trying to be one with us, but it is up to us to prepare ourselves to allow that to happen. Now, picture a path, like a sidewalk, wide, smooth, flat. That would be a perfect expression of what our path for grass. Trash that somebody's thrown out of their car window, perhaps something blocking the way, maybe a car parked over the sidewalk. All of these are metaphorical examples of the roadblocks that we put up to prevent ourselves from walking with Jesus. In the gospel, John tells us, "There is one among you whom you do not recognize." What prevents us from recognizing Jesus, from prioritizing Jesus? Perhaps it's winning at cost. Think about youth sports. Is winning everything? Or is it about sportsmanship and building character? Not to mention that families will skip Mass just because of sports schedules. But some of that is on us as a church Perhaps we as church have made that an easy decision for them. But I digress. What are some of the obstacles you put in the path? For the longest time for me, it was work. Work came before pretty much everything else in my life. Or anything shiny, and by that I mean any easy distraction that didn't make me look into myself. Introspection can be difficult, should be difficult. Difficult, but necessary if we want to grow. Life is full of roadblocks that we have no control over. No control other than how we choose to react to them. But there are roadblocks that are self-imposed, or cultural, or caused by the way we were raised. I believe one, if not the biggest roadblock, is how we see other people. Remember, there is one among you whom you do not recognize. I mentioned the colors that the church uses for the different seasons throughout the year. That is a proper use of color for categorizing. Using color to categorize people, quite frankly, is wrong. Before I was ordained a deacon, our class went down to St. Sabina Catholic Church in Chicago, where Father Flager is the pastor. They have a large mural behind the altar of Jesus as a man of color reaching out his hands to welcome you. Well, not so much to welcome, but to pull you in, to rescue you. Some people do not care for that. They will say, that's not what Jesus looks like. Really? You know what Jesus looks like? There's one thing I can tell you. Jesus of Nazareth did not look like a white European man. What we see in the artwork that we are all familiar with was created in the image of what the artist was familiar with. It is not an historical account. God is not white or black or green or rose. God is all and everything. That belief is stated in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 239, where it reads that God is a mystery, inaccessible to reason alone, and transcends the human distinction between the sexes. He is neither man nor woman. He is God. God is God. We are not. I made sure to quote the Catechism because I don't want to be the guy who broke the internet because of people commenting on something they might deem as radical thinking. It's not radical thinking. It's the teaching of the church. We shouldn't try to boil God down to something easy for us to understand. It's not about understanding God. We can't. It's about accepting his love for us. The best way to accept God's love for us is to love others. All others, not just the ones like us or the ones we like. We need to see God in everyone, even those who we don't like, especially in those who we don't like. But at some point, we have to own up to who we are, what we are, and then decide what we are going to do about it. And that's the real question. Do you want to grow in your relationship with God, or do you just want to keep on getting by? Advent is the time for us to figure out and do something about it. We have 2 weeks before Christmas. How are you preparing your path?